What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so you may recall yesterday I did a video talking about how the New Orleans Pelicans have suspended Zion Williamson for one game for conduct detrimental to the team. He reportedly missed a flight to Philly, so therefore he will miss that game against the Sixers. It also been reported, I think it was reported by Chris Haynes, that the suspension was a culmination of many violations by Zion Williamson, including missing several practices this year. Remember, on top of this, Zion Williamson missed 27 games due to, I think it was a calf strain, which to me, even though I know that it takes a while to recover from a calf strain, that sounds excessive to me as far as games missed, but it is what it is. I'm not a doctor. Then on top of that, he comes back, has some spectacular 360 tomahawk dunk or some crap he pulled off, and then go proceed to miss, I think, 2 more games. So a lot of people are just fed up with Zion Williamson, man. They're done with this guy. Go ahead and trade him. And Shannon Sharpe voiced what many of us, most of us, almost all of us feel at this point in time on his podcast with his nightcap podcast with Chad Ochocinco. This is what he had to say here.
Bro, you bull jabbing. So we finna start taking $150,000, $200,000 from you.
Well, you listen. Now you got to be careful. Now you got to be careful because now if you think you're bull driving, and you start taking money from him, then you're gonna see you got to deal with the pushback. Oh, so that's what we're doing? All right, we know it. I don't want to be here no more.
Well, that's very obvious. Have you seen? I mean, what gave you? Tell me what gave you the impression that he wanted to be there?
Yeah, they come out and say they don't want to play there. Because normally when they play,
I don't need you to tell me. You show me with your actions. See, I see better than I hear. I hear you telling me you want to be there. But I see every time I turn around, you're hurt. I see every time I turn around, I got to put a weight clause in your contract to make sure you don't overeat. You're not healthy. You're not taking it serious. Bro, how you show up late when you know
the time to play?
My job, we travel, Ocho. They done gave you the itinerary. We get the itinerary, we get Friday. Okay, we leaving at such and such. Okay, we got practice, boom, boom, boom. We got blah, okay. We got practice tomorrow morning. We got meeting. We got walkthrough. Plane leaves at 3:30. It is spring that only. Man, I wonder what time the plane. Man, I thought we was leaving it, bro. Man, Zion, y'all better stop caring. And all y'all, but I follow a lot of the people in the chat. Man, let that man live. Man, he young. Young fat people become old fat people. And old fat people don't live long. You ever see an old fat person, Ocho? Nope.
He gonna get it together. I don't know when, but
they said.
Well, there are some old fat people. John Madden lived to be 85. George Wendt from Cheers, he's in his 70s. Jackie Gleason lived to comb gray hair. Depends on what you consider fat, though. James Earl Jones was in his 90s, although most of his life he wasn't really fat. But I understand his point, though. Fat people generally don't live as long as everybody else. Look, I don't see any lies detected from Shannon Sharpe, man. Either two things are going on here. Zion Williamson doesn't want to be in New Orleans. Even though he professes that he wants to be there, his actions are screaming that he wants to be elsewhere. Okay? I remember hearing C.J. McCollum complain about how Zion Williamson didn't even seem to be engaging with him as a teammate when he first was. I think he was traded there, wasn't he? C.J. McCollum. When he first arrived there in New Orleans, Zion Williamson was the one teammate that didn't really connect with him at all. He's supposed to be the team leader or amongst one of the leaders. Shannon Sharpe touched on how at one point in time the league seemed to be molding Zion to be the face of the NBA, and that has not panned out. Like you said, the fact that they got to put weight clauses in his contract because they're so unsure about his commitment to basketball. And Shannon Sharpe touched on some other stuff. I didn't want to play all of the audio, but he touched on the fact that he's not even convinced that Zion Williamson wants to play basketball, period. Damn sure he don't want to play in New Orleans. But I'm to the point where I don't even think I'm kind of wondering whether he really wants to play basketball, period, at this point. I think the money has spoiled him. First of all, I think he's spoiled in general. Like he said, these guys get a list of what is scheduled for the day and possibly the next day, so they can plan accordingly. And probably for a whole week, to be honest with you, they probably get, like you said, an itinerary of what they're getting a list of what's on the itinerary for each particular day, maybe going out for a couple of days. And so for him to be late, for people like Joel Embiid to be late, that just shows you a disregard that they have for the organization, for their teammates, and a selfishness and a narcissism. They don't really care. And that's also another thing that happens when people are treated as special because of their athletic abilities or some ability that they have. That's what happens. These people they really believe themselves as being special or above everybody else. So they may say the right things, but at their heart and at their core, they think that they're special. The rules don't apply to them. And at the end of the day, if Zion Williamson eats himself out of the league, I don't want to hear those fucking sob stories from this mother sucker 10 years from now. Oh, I ruined my chances, but I don't care, man. That's just like, when Antoine Walker came out a couple of years ago and said that he was basically broke, right? And I'm looking at Antoine Walker in the interview. I'm like, bro, first of all, you damn near look like Baby Shaq now. So people not gonna really have any sympathy for you. Because the first thing they're gonna say is, well, you probably don't have no money because you ate your savings. You ate away your savings. Nobody gonna care. Second of all, most of us remember, even though he was not the talent that Zion was as far as overall talent, but Antoine Walker was great in Kentucky. But Antoine Walker had the same problem. I remember when Antoine Walker was drafted, he was 225 pounds. Right? Then comes the lockout year. And like Shannon Sharpe said, a lot of these guys, they are accustomed to being big eaters. But that's one thing when you're playing basketball and you're a big eater, at least you're burning thousands and thousands of calories a day, so it keeps your weight in check. But during the lockout, these guys were not playing basketball. So as a consequence, they weren't burning off the calories that they were putting on, that they were eating, so they're putting on weight. So, what I'm saying, Antoine goes from 225 to 250. And then ultimately, toward the end of his career, he was 265. So then he goes from a guy that had the mid-range game, some perimeter play, but the earlier Antoine would play inside a little bit more. Then all of a sudden, he started drifting further and further away from the basket and became more of a jump shooter. And you can argue that prolonged his career, but, Antoine Walker wasn't the greatest outside shooter, in my opinion. But anyway, He's just an example of that. But Oliver Miller, Kevin Duckworth, they're other prime examples of players who literally ate themselves out of the league. You know what I'm saying? But Zion Williamson is on another trajectory as far as talent. But he's in a danger zone. He's 24 years old, and it's like we see the same thing every year. Every year we see this guy coming to the season, supposedly this will be the year. This will be the year Zion's going to prove everybody wrong. And then he gets hurt. And then he misses an excessive amount of time compared to the injury that he suffered. And he comes back, has a little bit of a stretch where he plays well, and then, he gets hurt at the end of the season, and, whatever the case may be. And then it's the whole replay bullshit every other next year. And I'm just to the point where I think that it's become obvious he doesn't want to be in New Orleans. This whole New Orleans experiment, this whole thing needs to be blown up. We'll talk about that in a video later on today. He blows this whole thing up, Shit, he just blows this whole thing up, man, because it ain't working. It ain't working, man. Zion, you can't build your franchise around this guy. He's not that type of guy. Perhaps I think Zion needs to be around a guy that a player that demands respect, a player that will hold him accountable. He needs a Moses Malone, who is that's the guy Charles Barkley had to help turn him around. He needs a Moses Malone. Because without Moses Malone, who knows where Charles Barkley would have ended up as far as his career is concerned. Phenomenal talent, but, couldn't control his eating. And that's the thing. In college, Barkley could get by on his talent. Because we've seen highlights of Charles Barkley running fast breaks with his titties jumping up and down. We've seen it. But once he got into the pros, that held him back. And he had to shed about a good 50 pounds to go from being a decent player to being a superstar. Zion Williamson probably needs to shed at least 25 to 30 pounds to be a consistent superstar and to cut down the injuries. Because a lot of these injuries that he's suffering from, you notice that they're leg injuries, which usually happens to players who are carrying around a little bit too much excess weight. You know what I'm saying? We've seen that with Shaq. Leg injuries, hip injuries, ankle injuries, knee injuries. A lot of this stuff happens when guys are carrying too much weight. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.